You are riding on the Oregon Electric Railway. I want to give a description of what these look like, and what these were like. This was a palatial experience for passengers on the line. The cars initially painted traction service orange, but later changed to Pullman green, were like little roll-in clubhouses. There were observation cars, buffet cars, smoking compartments, and even for a few years, sleeping cars, which one could board in the evening in Portland and wake up the next morning in Eugene. This luxury line strategy was applied to much of the railroad's buildings and infrastructure as well, and you can see it in the remaining large depots and transfer stations, all built very expensively with timeless style and built to last. The cars of this time were quite ornate, many of them being built by experienced coach makers and skilled carpenters. The interiors were trimmed in mahogany, and the beautiful plush green upholstered seats made the ride fairly comfortable. The fares were inexpensive, the car's movement was smooth with a quiet ride, and had many amenities offered by the railways. So this first painting here, the orange, one such interurban train on the very high and large wooden trestle, you can see even in the book here, crossing over Woods Creek and Maplewood, looking northeast. And I happen to have a photograph of that as well. So this was quite high. And so we have a story on our website from Patty Wakeman Ingebretson, telling of herself as a young girl who lived in Maplewood. She says, Maplewood Road had been paved, and part of that road had been in the railroad trestle. The road had no shoulder or sidewalk, but there were houses on both sides of the street until Southwest 48. The road from Southwest 48 to Southwest 51st was a section of the trestle that was paved, and that was scary. There were no homes on this stretch. It did have a guardrail on the east side. It was straight down on the west side of the roadway. It was a long way down from the top of the paved trestle, and we children felt anxious and unsafe walking to and from school each day. The familiar curve of Maplewood Road can still give one a sense of train tracks and the trestle even today. And here, there's a map that shows that curve. So,
These photos are also in
right.
the display.
I never got over being afraid of the walk to and from Maplewood School. The paved trestle with little shoulder and nowhere to go made it a very scary and lonely daily journey. It did not help that only a small portion of Maplewood students lived south of the school. Although my route to and from school each day was anxiety producing, the innocence of the 1950s, coupled with the closeness of the little Maplewood community, made it an ideal place to be a young girl. Can you imagine being that high off the ground and bravely walking to school and back home every day? Fortunately, she didn't need to worry about the possibility of a train whisking by since the service had already ended. So, does everybody know where the Garden Home Junction was? Okay. The Garden Home Rail Station was just east of what is now the Old Market Pub on southwest Multnomah Boulevard. Little quiz at the end of all this. Just kidding. And this is what it looked like. And you can see the picture in there as well. What was interesting is you could go from here to Portland in about 35 minutes. Every day. No traffic. All righty. So let's move over to this next painting. I want to point out Wakanda. I knew where Wakanda was until Mr. Haley's, Father Haley's painting came.
Is that the Wakanda that's down closer to Salem?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's After going through Garden Home Junction heading south between West Woodburn and Salem was this substation at Wakanda, milepost 41. From Garden Home, it was about an hour and 35 minutes to Salem, each way, no traffic. So another closer to Salem in the fertile Willamette Valley, there were many hop farms where the Oregon Electric Railway would run special trains to haul entire families during picking season. I thought that was an interesting tidbit. A lot of these details that I'm talking about are actually on the back of one of the paintings. And so here, sign for Wakanda, and this is that building. It still stands as far as I know. Okay, on to the next one. This was referred to as the Tripper. I'll give you a minute to come by closer. This was the only direct service on the Oregon Electric Railway between Corvallis and Portland. I want you to notice the boy with the bicycle. The story about this is the boy remembers going down after school to sit in the rear car with the conductor for a few minutes and then ride into the station, wishing for the full ride. The boy and his brother did have a ride once from Corvallis to Gray and back. Everyone know where Gray is? We know where Corvallis is. Gray was where the 5 freeway is, kind of. And so that was the drive or the ride. It was about a 15-minute both ways. Okay. And so this was the whole route from Portland all the way down to Eugene. And it took about a little under 4 hours to take that whole trip. So it wasn't a real, it was pretty fast. I mean, even today, when I drive it, it takes a few hours to get there. So train was moving pretty well. So here, the Tripper again. So this person apparently lived in and around Corvallis or something. The only direct service on the Oregon Electric Railway between Corvallis and Portland. Notice again, the children in the painting. On the back of this painting is a handwritten note saying, departing Corvallis East River Station, 4:10 p.m. for direct service to Portland, circa 1927. Watercolor by Kent L. Haley, Salem, Oregon, June 1984. So many a university student and professor rode the plush seats through the then open and beautiful Willamette Valley. Another point that he makes is the long tangents on the Oregon Electric line would have made a superb foundation for a rapid transit route in the gradually Los Angelesizing Willamette Valley. Well, a few more years, a decade or more, see a resurrection. If only. So Harold sent me this advertisement that they had for the University of Oregon students. They would do specials, and they would go from Portland to, well, you could stop anywhere, but Portland to Eugene, anywhere in between. And I thought that it was very interesting that that your father knew about that, only to find out from y'all that he went there. So my suspicions about the children and the trains was about him. So I have another train story on the Garden Home History website, and it's from Vivian Dupuy Bosley, who was born in 1918, married Ken Bosley in 1938. Ken Bosley was a 2 years old when he arrived in Oregon with his mother, Marjorie, in 1917. Marjorie Bosley married Bob Smith, who owned a store near the Garden Home train station, near what is now the intersection of Garden Home Road and Multnomah Boulevard. So basically right across the street from the train depot. As a child, Ken, he worked at the store doing various jobs. Vivian remembers that one of his jobs required him to pick up and deliver the mail to the train as it came through Garden Home. To do this, Ken would run along the side of the passing train, and the man assigned to handle the mail would toss the mail bag to Ken. Likewise, when Ken was delivering the mail to the train, he would run along the side of the mail car and toss the bag to the man on board. Ken became an expert at this, and Vivian recalls that as a result, he could run like a deer. So about this time, Bert Waller was hired by Aaron Frank of Portland's downtown Meyer and Frank store, who owned a large piece of property in Garden Home. He bought this property in the early 1920s so he would have adequate land for his family's horses near the Oregon Electric Railroad line, where a loading dock facilitated the easy transportation of his show horses. So, there are some of his horses. And this is the loading dock. It's hard to see, but there's a walkway up to the train. You can see the electrical lines up above. In the Garden Home area, we had the Nickel Riding Academy, the Portland Hunt Club, and the Portland Riding Academy. So we had lots of horse tails and whatnot. So Aaron Frank's young son, Jerry Frank, and Bert Waller's daughter, Bertine, were great friends, and the two were often at the store, talking about Vivian's store across from the train station. The trains passing through Garden Home were a great fascination for them, and it didn't take long for them to discover that the best place to watch the trains was from Ken and Vivian's roof. The two youngsters would sometimes drop by to visit, and Vivian enjoyed seeing them, but when she would hear them tromping around on the roof, she would go outside and yell for them to get down. They could fall, of course. So how did these 4 watercolor paintings come to Garden Home? Harold German, who unfortunately is not here because he's at a model train show, of course, has presented them on loan for Garden Home History to manage. He received them from his friend Dwayne Kramer, there's a story on the very end board, who worked with him on the Spokane, Portland, Seattle, the SP&S, as well as railway historical museums and associations, and as a model railroader by his wife Judy, who lives in Vancouver, Washington, who wasn't able to make it today. She's up in years herself. According to a note from Bob Atkins, who also worked with Dwayne and Harold, Louise Grand, who was married to Walter R. Grand and author of the book that I have set up over there, the Northwest Owned Railway, had received these paintings while writing that book from Father Kent Haley. So who was Father Kent?
Up forward again, now that,
Oh, yes.
just so that all of the
The rest of us can see.